There is a language that exists inside the British royal family that has nothing to do with words. It does not appear in speeches or press releases or palace statements. It cannot be found in any constitutional document or official record. It is spoken through objects, through diamonds and pearls and platinum settings, and the very specific, very deliberate decision about whose neck a necklace goes around and whose wrist a bracelet rests against. Queen Elizabeth II was the most fluent speaker of this language who ever lived. For 70 years, she used her private jewelry collection not just as adornment, but as a communication system. A way of expressing trust, affection, approval, and, when necessary, the unmistakable, silent, devastating withholding of all of those things. And the story of how she used that collection, who she gave things to and who she did not, is one of the most extraordinary power stories in the history of the modern monarchy. Tonight we are telling that story completely. The real history behind the most significant pieces in the royal collection. The verified facts about who wore what and when and why. And the power shift that is now playing out between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine as Elizabeth's legacy is divided between the two most senior women in the royal family. This is not gossip. This is documented history expressed through extraordinary objects. And by the end of tonight, you will understand that the British monarchy's most powerful statements have never been made in words. They have been made in diamonds. This is Royal Report Daily. And tonight, we are opening the vault. Welcome to Royal Report Daily, your #1 destination for real royal news, verified investigations, and the stories the palace doesn't want you to find. I'm your host. And if you are new here, subscribe right now and hit that notification bell, because what we cover on this channel, you will not find anywhere else. Every single week, we go deeper, we go further, and we go to places the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Tonight is one of those nights. Let's get into it. Let us begin with the scale of what we are talking about, because most people do not fully understand the size and significance of the British royal jewelry collection. The crown jewels, the orbs, scepters, and crowns housed in the Tower of London belong to the state. They are managed through constitutional protocol and passed automatically from monarch to monarch. But Elizabeth also maintained a private collection. A personal accumulation of pieces given to her as gifts, inherited from family members, purchased over decades, and carried with her through every significant moment of a 70-year reign. The full extent of that private collection has never been made completely public. But jewelry experts and royal historians who have studied it estimate it includes over 1,000 individual pieces. Its total value is estimated at somewhere between 60 and 100 million pounds. Royal Jewelry Authority at Natural Diamonds updated their assessment in November 2025, describing Queen Camilla as having inherited the largest collection of jewelry in the world, now surmised to be worth in the region of $120 million. These are not decorations. They are history made physical. Every significant piece carries the weight of the events that surrounded it, the people who wore it, the moments it witnessed. And Elizabeth understood that weight better than anyone. She used it deliberately, precisely, and with a strategic intelligence that the people around her spent decades trying to fully decode. If you want to understand how Elizabeth used jewelry as power, subscribe to Royal Report Daily right now. Because what comes next is where this story becomes genuinely extraordinary. Let us start with the Cartier Halo Tiara and what its appearance on Catherine's head on April 29, 2011 actually meant. The Cartier Halo is a relatively delicate piece by royal standards. 16 graduated scrolls set with over 700 diamonds. The Duke of York, Elizabeth's father, purchased it in 1936. It was later gifted to Princess Elizabeth for her 18th birthday in 1944. Elizabeth never wore it publicly. Not once. It passed briefly to Princess Margaret and Princess Anne, and then disappeared into the vault for approximately 40 years. When Elizabeth chose it specifically for Catherine's wedding day, the choice communicated something important. The Cartier Halo had no painful history attached to it. In a royal family where almost every significant piece of jewelry was soaked in someone else's tragedy, Diana's rings, pieces connected to abdications and divorces and losses. Handing Catherine a piece with a clean emotional history was genuinely generous. It was a way of saying to a young woman about to walk into one of the most scrutinized roles on earth, you are beginning something new. You do not have to carry anyone else's weight. Royal jewelry expert Caroline Decoded, speaking to various outlets about Elizabeth's approach to lending pieces, described the Queen's jewelry decisions as almost always symbolically meaningful, chosen with a care that went far beyond aesthetics. And royal author Tessa Dunlop, writing for Woman and Home in April 2026, noted that Elizabeth had given her blessing for Catherine to wear the Cartier Halo. Many believe it to have been a symbolic gesture of not only her fondness for her grandson's bride, but also a recognition of her future status within the family. That is the language of jewelry. A tiara placed on a young woman's head as a declaration of belonging. Like this video right now if this story is showing you something about the royal family that you have never fully understood before. And subscribe to Royal Report Daily, because what comes next is the most emotionally powerful piece in this entire story. Now let us talk about the Edinburgh Bracelet, because the story behind this piece is one of the most genuinely moving in royal history. It begins with Princess Alice of Battenberg, Prince Philip's mother. Alice was born completely deaf. She communicated her entire life by reading lips in 4 languages simultaneously. She married into the Greek royal family, built a life, raised 5 children. And then in 1930, she was involuntarily committed to a Swiss mental institution by the people closest to her. Her children were distributed among relatives across Europe. Philip was 8 years old. He spent his childhood passed between households, a child nobody quite knew what to do with. Alice was eventually freed. She returned to Greece. And when the Nazis occupied Athens during the Second World War, she did something remarkable. She sheltered Jewish families inside her own apartment at direct personal risk to her life. When German officers came and questioned her, she looked at them and told them she did not understand the question. She was deaf, after all. By the time the war ended, Alice had almost nothing left. One thing she still held was a tiara she had received as a wedding gift from Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra of Russia. When Philip came to her in 1947 with no money and a royal wedding approaching, she handed him that tiara without hesitation. He took it to a London jeweler, had the diamonds extracted, and had them reset into a bold geometric Art Deco bracelet that he placed on Elizabeth's wrist on their wedding day in November 1947. That bracelet was built from diamonds that survived the murder of an entire dynasty, held for decades by a woman who lost her freedom and then used what remained of herself to protect strangers from genocide. Elizabeth wore that bracelet, by all accounts, consistently throughout their marriage. It represented the most personal and painful history Philip carried. And in 2015, at the state banquet for the President of China, Catherine wore it. The Edinburgh Bracelet on the wrist of the future queen. And Camilla, the current Princess of Wales at that time, sat at the same table. That moment was not an accident. In Elizabeth's jewelry language, it was a complete and irreversible sentence. Do not go anywhere. Subscribe to Royal Report Daily and turn on notifications, because the next pieces in this story carry histories that will genuinely stop you in your tracks. The Nizam of Hyderabad necklace is one of the most extraordinary objects in the entire royal collection, and its history is complicated in ways that matter. Mir Osman Ali Khan, the last Nizam of Hyderabad, was by some calculations the single richest man alive in 1947. When Elizabeth married that November, he sent a representative to Cartier in London with instructions that were staggering in their simplicity. Allow the princess to choose anything from the entire stock with no financial limit whatsoever. Elizabeth chose a platinum lacework necklace featuring 13 emerald-cut diamonds of extraordinary clarity, a dramatic detachable double-drop pendant, and a pave set center that sent light across any room it entered. Conservative modern estimates place its value at between $40 and $60 million, making it one of the most expensive pieces in the private royal collection. And here is the part of the story that almost never gets told. 10 months after the Nizam sent that necklace to Princess Elizabeth, the Indian government sent its military into Hyderabad and forcibly annexed the entire state. The Nizam's authority was abolished. His fortune was largely confiscated or frozen. The man who had told Cartier to let a princess choose anything from their entire stock spent the remaining years of his life watching everything he had built taken apart. His descendants spent 7 decades in legal battles trying to recover assets. One specific dispute over funds deposited in a London bank account dragged through British courts for 71 years before being resolved in 2019. Elizabeth wore the necklace proudly in the 1950s. As decades passed and the world began examining colonial history more carefully, it quietly returned to the vault. Then in 2014, she placed it around Catherine's neck at a major public event. Conservative estimates suggest $40 to $60 million of history resting against a future queen's collarbone. The meaning of that choice, documented, photographed, seen by the world, needs no further translation. Now let us talk about the Royal Family Order of Elizabeth II. Because this is the piece that most completely captures what Elizabeth was doing with her collection and why. The Royal Family Order is the most intimate and most secretive honor in the entire British monarchy. There is no committee, no constitutional process, no parliamentary vote, no public ceremony. The sovereign alone decides in private who is worthy of receiving it. The piece itself is a miniature painted portrait of the Queen, set in a diamond frame, suspended on a pale yellow silk ribbon. Female members of the royal family pin it to their chest at state banquets and diplomatic receptions. What it communicates to everyone in the room who understands royal protocol is simple and absolute. The Queen personally looked at this woman and decided she was trusted enough to carry the Queen's own face pressed against her body. According to documented reporting by royal correspondents and confirmed by jewelry historians, Elizabeth gave the royal family order to Catherine. She gave it during Catherine's time as Princess of Wales, before Catherine was the future queen consort. And Elizabeth never gave it to Camilla during her lifetime. Sit with that. Camilla was constitutionally the Princess of Wales from 2005. She later became queen consort, the second most senior woman in the entire British monarchy. And Elizabeth never once gave her the portrait to wear. The portrait that said, "I personally trust you, I personally approve of you, I personally want you to carry my image." One woman received the constitutional title because the law required it. The other woman received the portrait because Elizabeth personally chose to give it. The distance between those two things was not subtle. It was an ocean. And everyone inside that palace understood exactly what it meant. Like this video right now if this story is making you see Elizabeth in a completely new way. And subscribe to Royal Report Daily, because what comes next is about what happened to all of this after Elizabeth died. And it changes everything. The Lover's Knot tiara is the most famous piece Catherine wears. And its history before it reached her is genuinely difficult to read about without feeling the full weight of what Diana went through. Queen Mary commissioned the piece in 1913. Gothic diamond arches in platinum. 19 large natural pearls hanging from diamond stems, swinging freely with every movement. But wearing it is a physically punishing experience. The weight drives into the skull, and the momentum of 19 swinging pearls pulls at the hair with every step. Elizabeth wore it briefly in the early years of her reign and retired it almost immediately. Then in 1981, it was retrieved for Diana. And what followed is where this tiara's history becomes genuinely painful. Diana wore the Lover's Knot throughout the 1980s at state banquets and diplomatic receptions, smiling radiantly under those diamond arches while her marriage was privately collapsing. She reportedly called it her Frankenstein crown in private. She hated it, not because of the physical weight, but because of what it felt like to perform grace and composure under that crown while everything underneath the performance was breaking. When Diana's divorce was finalized and she died 11 months later, the tiara went back into the vault. Then in 2010, William retrieved it for Catherine. Royal jewelry specialists examining photographs of Catherine wearing the Lover's Knot identified that at least 2 of the 19 original natural pearls had been damaged or lost and had been quietly replaced with cultured pearls slightly different in luster. The tiara Catherine wears is not entirely the same object Diana wore. Parts of it have been repaired and rebuilt. A crown that has absorbed fractures and losses across generations, presenting itself to the world as continuous and whole, even when the people inside it know exactly where the breaks occurred. The parallel to the monarchy itself is almost too precise to be accidental. Now let us talk about what has happened since Elizabeth died in September 2022. Because this is where the story becomes a living, present-tense one. When Elizabeth died, her private collection did not automatically transfer according to a simple legal formula. The crown jewels in the Tower of London passed to Charles automatically because they belong to the state. But the private collection existed in a more complex space. And in the months following the funeral, Charles quietly initiated a review of how the private pieces should be allocated going forward. The result has been a gradual, deliberate, carefully managed transition. Camilla, as Queen Consort, has been wearing pieces from Elizabeth's collection in a way she never could during Elizabeth's lifetime. At the Windsor Castle State Banquet for the 2025 U.S. state visit, she wore the Belgian sapphire tiara, a piece worth an estimated $6.7 million, paired with diamond earrings and the Greville festoon necklace. At the French State Banquet in July 2025, she wore over $12 million in sapphires from Elizabeth's collection. At the Nigerian State Banquet in March 2026, she wore the Belgian sapphire tiara again, while Catherine simultaneously wore the lovers not at the same event. 2 women, 2 tiaras, 1 table. Elizabeth's jewelry being divided between them in real time, at every state occasion, in front of the world. Jewelry experts writing for GB News in early 2026 predicted that Camilla would continue to embrace unique pieces from the collection throughout the year, expanding beyond her staples like the Greville tiara into pieces Elizabeth rarely wore publicly, including the Burmese ruby tiara and emerald-studded pieces she debuted in 2024 and 2025. And Catherine, who continues to wear the lover's knot, the Cartier Halo, and the other pieces Elizabeth placed into her hands across 13 years of carefully staged public moments, shows no sign of releasing what Elizabeth gave her. Both women carry Elizabeth's legacy forward, but they carry different parts of it. Camilla carries the constitutional authority, the title, the crown, the formal inheritance of the Queen Consort role that she waited 30 years to receive. Catherine carries the personal endorsement, the bracelet built from Romanov diamonds, the portrait on the silk ribbon, the tiara placed on her head with a blessing rather than a legal requirement. Elizabeth never had to say out loud what she thought. Her jewelry said it for her across 20 years of state banquets and diplomatic receptions and carefully chosen lending decisions. And now that Elizabeth is gone, those objects continue to speak. Every time Catherine pins the royal family order to her chest. Every time Camilla wears the Belgian sapphire tiara. Every time the lover's knot catches the light at another state banquet table. The language Elizabeth built is still being spoken. By the objects she left behind. And by the 2 women she left to carry them. That is all for tonight's investigation on Royal Report Daily. If this video made you think, made you feel, or made you see the story differently, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it means everything to this channel. Subscribe if you have not already and turn on notifications because we post new investigations every week and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Share this video with one person who follows the royal story because the more people who know the real truth, the better. I'm your host. This has been Royal Report Daily. Stay informed. Stay royal. And I will see you in the next one. Elizabeth never raised her voice. She raised a diamond instead. Subscribe to Royal Report Daily and be here for every chapter of the story she left behind.